When I put out a call asking my subscribers to submit their own original characters designed to fight and potentially kill my own original characters from the Multiverse Tale series that I do on this channel, I'll be honest, I kind of expected to get a lot fewer submissions than I would for a regular Community Redraw episode. Because, you know, that's a much more specific, niche kind of thing to submit for. But we ended up getting way more submissions than usual, and that warms my heart to know how many of you are interested in killing off my original characters. And of course it meant I had a lot of selection for who to work into the story for today. I'll start the episode with a drawing of an original Multiverse Tales character who's shown up before, Eloise Ludum, then redraw 6 of the submitted hero killers, and show off hopefully all of the awesome stuff that was submitted, while telling the story of Mara and the Multiverse Melee. Let's get into it, shall we? Let's go. Hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like, but either way, enjoy the show.
Kill.
A voice shook through Mara's body. I'm going to, but not because you're telling me to. The ground around Koshmara shook as she stood surrounded by crumbling buildings and rubble. All right, Mara, Heath called from a ways behind her, surrounded by Benny and the rest of Mara's new otherworldly friends. If you need backup, we're right here. She nodded and her head panned up as a monstrous, nearly 300-foot tall beast stomped down the road towards her. Sterling's leg was twitching vigorously as he turned to Benny. This is too much, Benny. Even Heath couldn't take down that thing on his own. I trust you that she's tough, but... Cool it, Silva. Just watch. Maya here's so crazy tough she makes Heath look like Tayron. No offense, Tayron. Tayron and Kayla were at the back of the group, watching and holding hands. Tayron chuckled, but Kayla jumped to his defense. Watch it, Benny. Tayron's gotten some upgrades since the last time you saw him fight, right, Astra? Astra was standing farther from the group, with her foot tapping rapidly, every now and then shooting a glance over at Alexis, who, as usual, refused to make eye contact with her. Astra, you hear me? Kayla asked. Huh? Oh, yeah, I helped Creature Feature here out with getting some actually useful abilities for once. He's not gonna be the weak link of the group anymore. Now, can we hurry up? I want to get home. Tayron tilted his head at her. Was I the weak link of the group till now? Before anyone could answer, the stomping got too loud to ignore. The kaiju was only a dozen meters ahead of Mara. She crouched down and the demonic grime that covered her arms and head began to twitch. The group all held their breath as the monster took another stomping step forward. Purple streaked from Mara's eyes, and she fired off the ground so quickly the onlookers practically missed it. She clawed her way up the creature's leg, leaving gashes in its flesh as she moved. It roared so loudly the blast shattered glass as it thrust a webbed paw towards her. She leapt onto it and climbed it up to the creature's chest. She thrust her arm into a crease in the beast's shoulder, and before the group could understand what she was doing, she tore her demonic arm to the side and ripped the creature's arm clean off. Red and black blood shot across the nearest building as the arm crashed to the street below. Kayla gagged. Oh my god, that's disgusting! Heath's jaw was practically on the floor. That's incredible! Benny smirked. That's Mara for you, shop gang. Before anyone could remind Benny that none of them agreed with their group name being called the Sharp Gang, Mara sprung from the creature's shoulder right past its head. For a moment, some thought she'd missed, but as she landed on the wall of a nearby building, the head of the creature slowly slipped off and thundered towards the earth below, shattering as it collided with concrete. The creature's body leaned, then fell backwards for the last time, shaking the city. Mara leapt down and landed before the group. They were all just staring, wide-eyed. Ta-da? She said nervously. The group all cheered praises that were unintelligible spoken over each other, as they all ran towards her and gave her hugs and pats on the back, none of them even flinching at the thought of touching her demonic markings, which had just spread slightly more down her arm after the kill. She'd thought only killing demons caused it to grow, but apparently killing anything made it spread. Nobody else noticed, though. Their praises and just general acceptance were near overwhelmingly uplifting, so much so that Mara had to hold back tears. Besides, when she met Benny just a week ago, she hadn't felt this respected in ages. Her mind briefly flashed back to her friends back in her home dimension, who'd been so terrified of her and mistrusting of her due to her curse. The thought of them still hurt, but the love she was now already feeling from these new friends soothed that pain near completely. Even Benny, who is standing a bit back from the group, got a warm glow of satisfaction seeing his friends embrace her, even though they all knew the story of the dark potential of her demonic powers. Astra suddenly pushed the group apart. "Alright, wonderful, she's a crazy demon tank. Now let's get back to A016 already." Nobody understood why Astra was in such a rush, but they all just nodded along, while still spewing praises onto Mara, making Astra's teeth grind. Astra opened a portal back to the Agency of Supernatural Protection in her, Sterling, and Alexis's dimension. They all stepped through towards the door of the building, until a voice spoke from behind the portal. "Astra, Astra, Astra, I think you know me well enough to know I very much do not enjoy being kept waiting." The portal closed and they all whipped around to see a figure very familiar to a few of them. Tayron and Heath both got into battle stances. "Ludum, what are you doing here?" Heath turned back to Astra just as she was finishing a pattern of taps on the runes on her forearm. "Calm down, Eloise, I'm here now, aren't I?" A gust of wind suddenly blew some kind of pink powder from around the side of the building that burst through the group. The second the dust went into their nostrils, the whole group passed out. Everyone except Eloise, Astra, and unexpectedly, Mara. Mara raised her demon fist and darted her eyes from Eloise to Astra. Astra, what's happening? Who is this?" "Who am I? Who is she, Astra? I didn't commission anything for her." Astra sneered at Mara. "She's a new friend of Benny's, just bring her and make her watch or something." Mara wasn't sure if she should attack either of these two, but she was becoming tempted to tear Astra in half as she looked at her unconscious friends. An unfortunately familiar feeling shot through her body and once again screamed,
Kill!
It gave her a chill, but once more she tried to ignore it. "What are her abilities? Could she be a fun addition to the show?" There was the slightest of pauses, then Astra said, "No, she's just got some weird, ugly curse thing. She's totally powerless." Mara's eyes shot over to Astra. She may not understand what was happening, but she could at least take a hint. Astra had something planned. Eloise rolled her eyes, grabbed a purple orb from behind her back, and hurled it at Mara. It wrapped around one of her hands, then forced it towards her other, locking both her hands in it before her. "Shame, but it's all the same to me, I suppose. Now let's be off. I can't keep my adoring crowd waiting." Eloise opened a portal and Mara looked at Astra for any more signs, but Astra simply shot her a dirty look, walked up to her, and shoved her towards the portal, whispering, "You better not mess this up for us." Making a good impression on her new friends suddenly felt a lot harder. As Mara was pushed through one portal, another opened, and 6 burly, apocalyptically armored guards marched through and picked up the unconscious heroes. Mara stepped out onto a floating stony platform next to Eloise. There was a panel before her that had a myriad of glowing runes on it, like the ones on Astra, Eloise, and Tayron's arms, and like that of the very being that had given Mara her curse back on her world. Across the dark, purple-hued sky around her were hundreds of other platforms on which were other beings, all with these same markings, though some had theirs on their head or chests. Mara was still learning about the multiverse, but she knew enough to know that these were all overseers, the beings meant to watch over individual dimensions, but more often than not, they were bad news. Astra stepped through the portal and it shut behind her. Eloise tapped runes on the panel before her, and a massive hologram of her upper body appeared in the middle of all the platforms. The crowd erupted into cheers. "How are all you lovely little sadists doing today?" Cheers thundered louder as Eloise thrust her arms in the air and reveled in the praise. "We have a very special event for you all tonight, as I think many of you have had your universes so rudely invaded over the last few months by these 6 little pests." Eloise gestured down. Mara hadn't even looked below her yet. 100 feet down was a massive coliseum, split into 6 slices, with walls all meeting in the center. One of each of her new friends were slowly getting up in the arena, separated by the walls between them. Many members of the crowd booed. Yes, I feel the same. Some of them have even set their sights on shutting down my glorious arena. But, lucky for all of us, they had a traitor in their midst this whole time." She gestured to Astra, who flashed a sarcastic peace sign to the crowd. Some people clapped, many refrained, some still booed. It seemed Astra had her share of enemies across the multiverse as well. Well, today we can all revel in a bit of revenge, as my herald has commissioned 6 of you cruel little gods to provide some challenging rivals for these irksome dimension invaders. 6 holes opened up near the intersection of each slice of the Colosseum, and various creatures and beings were raised into the arena. 6 hologram screens appeared in front of the platform Mara stood on, giving her and Astra a closer look at what was coming up into each arena. There was some kind of biomech-enhanced orc to face Tayrin, an icy hydra to fight Sterling. Mara's heart thudded. She couldn't lose her new friends already. Eloise continued, "If you're listening down there, you little pests, each of you should know that your new little rivals have abilities perfectly suited to make quick work of you. But I'm not one to make a completely unfair fight, because what fun is that? At the center of each arena is a button. If all 6 of you manage to press yours, the walls separating you will disappear, and you can fight as the annoying little team that you usually are. Of course, you'd all have to get past your foes to do so. Good luck with that. Now, let the games begin!" Mara's eyes darted across the screens before her, anxious to see how all of her friends could handle these foes. Sterling was the first to make a move. Mara didn't know everyone very well, but she remembered everything she'd heard about Sterling. He could shoot fire from his hands fast enough even to fly, though he wasn't great at flying, and he could emit a silver liquid metal from his body to make weapons or protect himself from harm. But he also needed to keep his body temperature up enough to do either of those things, making the icy creature before him a particularly big problem. Sterling blasted rockets of flame from his hands and burst into the air. He flew close to the top of the wall about 50 feet up before stopping, noticing a purple sheen above him that he quickly pegged as a force field. There was no flying out of there. 2 cannons of frigid water shot up from below, and he stopped his propulsion to fall under the beams. The left and right head of the creature were shooting the blasts. He stopped his fall and shot through the air again, trying to fly over the Hydra towards the button. The watery neck of the middle head stretched up and fired towards him. Sterling hurled his arms in front of him, and they turned to metal just in time for the creature's head to hammer against him, sending him soaring back across the arena away from the button. Cannons of water fired at him again, just as he shot bursts of fire to land safely, before bolting aside to avoid the blasts. Mara wanted to see what he did next, but the others had started to move as well, and her eyes darted over to Tayrin's screen. The being in his arena was stocky and covered in fur, but more notably, he had a biomech on him, a sentient amorphous machine like Kayla had in her friend Charlie. They were a species that could transform parts of their host's body into mechanical weapons. Tayrin had his sword on him, but he hadn't drawn it yet. He tapped at the runes on his forearms a few times, clearly trying to do something, but whatever it was didn't seem to be working. Eloise chuckled to herself. "He's not really stupid enough to think I'd let him get away with that again, is he? Maybe this fight will be a little too short." Tayrin stopped his tapping and looked at his foe, who was marching towards him.
Akoj will kill you quickly, skinny beast man.
The mech on his shoulder sprung up a little head and said,
"Yeah, we gonna get you good, Overseer. I mean, I could take you out right now since Overseers and Biomechs don't gel so well together, but I think Akoj here needs to stretch his legs a little bit, so I'm gonna let him try to handle you first."
Akoj will not try. Akoj will do. Akoj will kill.
Akoj's walk turned into a sprint. Tayrin still didn't draw his blade. "Okay, this had really better work," he said to himself. Akoj got closer and closer and closer. At the last possible second, Tayrin spun around and from his back sprung 6 golden translucent triangles that all smacked against Akoj and sent him flying back across the arena. The glowing shapes twirled around through the air, then formed into an array behind Tayrin, like angelic wings. Eloise whipped around to Astra. "What exactly is that? You said he could hardly even handle his Overseer abilities, let alone whatever this is." Astra looked surprised. "I don't spend every second of every day with them. I guess he got new powers and never told me. But calm down, Eloise. You still have a biomech in there with him, and there's no way he beats that. Just enjoy the show." Eloise sneered and turned back to the screens. Mara looked at Astra again, desperate for any more signs of what was going on. Astra didn't give any looks, but Mara noticed that behind her back, Astra was doing something with the runes on her forearm. Mara quickly looked away to not draw attention and just tried to stay ready for whatever was coming. Mara's eyes naturally went to Benny's screen next. She knew him best, and while she didn't want to see anyone hurt, she wanted him safe most of all. Benny was shooting through the air in one of his many mech suits that he'd built, with a 12-foot long, 8-foot tall, bulky lightning beast sprinting and leaping around below him. This is gonna be good, because you know what, Eloise? How about Lou? Can I call you Lou?
Absolutely not, you miserable urchin!
She yelled from above. Alright, cool, thanks Lou. Cause you know what, Lou, I'm actually glad you brought me back here. Last time your challenge was so easy, I got out of here by accident. Didn't even have time to show off or nothing. But if you overseer goons want a show, I'll give you a show. I mean, so long as the little Sparky Papa below me can handle old Benny sharp. Benny fired a barrage of rockets from his wrist that spiraled down to the creature below. They exploded along its back. The thing barely flinched and snarled back up at him. It stomped into a crouched position, then let out a rumbling roar as a wave of yellow electricity burst off it and hit Benny in the air. His suit started to spark, and his flight faltered. He puttered through the air towards the ground before crashing and rolling in the dirt. Mara's breathing quickened, but Benny leapt up. Now that's what I'm after here, a real fight! Let's do this, you big ugly Pikachu! The creature stomped towards him, and Benny ran back at it. It looked like he tried taking off, but his suit's rockets just puttered and barely got him off the ground for a few seconds. The beast got close, and Benny swung a massive metal fist. But the creature whipped its head like lightning and caught the fist in its mouth. With its massive jaw, it crunched down, biting through the steel like it was butter. Benny let out a shocked cry that practically pierced Mara's soul. She'd never heard him in pain before. The creature thrashed its head and hurled Benny across the arena into a wall, and he slumped to the ground. The crowd burst into cheers. Benny picked himself up slowly. Alright, that wasn't super fun, I gotta admit. Guess I did underestimate that thing a little bit, but I think you might have underestimated parts of me too. Like, for instance, how good my aim is. Benny grabbed his damaged mech hand with his good one and ripped it off, revealing his now bloodied arm underneath. He spun to face the button nearly 100 meters away from him. He took one step forward, and with all the enhanced force of his suit, he hurled the broken piece of tech. The crumbling metal spiraled through the air right towards the button. Everyone watched in awe. He couldn't actually make that shot, could he? It flew and flew and flew and fell right towards the button. Then, finally, it hit the wall right next to the button, missing completely and flopping to the ground. Alright, can I hit the showers for today? I guess I'm not on my A game. But the beast was running at him once again, and seemed to be charging up for another electrical burst. Mara was staring, unblinking, but her attention was pulled away as a portal opened between her and Eloise. A new figure stepped through. It was a man with a floating cowboy hat above his head, and in place of arms, he had glowing red amorphous shapes that led down to gloved hands. Oh shoot, Ms. Ludum, did I miss the start of it? I'm sorry about that. It's my fault, though. Needed to do a little bit, But the figure trailed off as he noticed Mara. Well, as I live and breathe, you got Fear herself's cursed kid here from Dimension D667? Mara's whole body tensed at the mention of Fear herself, the one who'd given her demon curse. Who was this man, and how did he know about Mara? I'd love to see what you got in store for this one. His eyes panned down to the purple orb encasing Mara's hands. But Ms. Ludum, what's with the orb cuff? Seems like a silly thing to put on this gal. Eloise darted her eyes to him. What are you talking about, Harold? Obviously it's to keep her from doing anything stupid. Not that she could do much anyway. Ms. Ludum, all due respect, this kid could tear out of that thing like tissue paper. You'd have to have a baker's dozen monsters in an arena with her to make it a fair fight. Astra and Mara shot worried looks at each other. Eloise's teeth clenched as she whipped her head from Harold to Astra. Is that so? Astra, 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 have you been lying to me this whole time? That's a very ill-advised thing to do. Don't listen to him, Eloise. He probably has her mistaken for someone else. Maybe Harold was just thinking she was actually a... Oh, never mind. Finally done. And yes, I did lie. Astra finished tapping the runes on her forearm, whipped her arm from behind her back, and shoved her palm into Eloise's forehead. A green glow burst from Astra and embedded an emerald marking into Eloise that quickly faded. A green tail sprung from Astra's back, and she smacked both Eloise and Harold off the platform with it. Astra quickly tapped some runes on the platform before them, and the purple force field above the arena faded. The crowd all cheered and awed. They either thought this was part of the show or were just enjoying the unfolding debacle anyway. Astra whipped around to Mara. "Keep them away from the control panel. She can control the whole arena with it. I'm going to save my friends." Astra leapt from the platform and transformed into a green, steaming dragon that shot down into Alexis's arena first. Mara ripped her hands apart and easily tore free from her bonds. She looked up to see Eloise floating towards her. 4 purple bands were covering her arms now that seemed to be keeping her airborne. "I don't care how strong you think you are, child. In my world, I am queen. I am god." Her purple bands spun rapidly, and tassels from behind the back of her dress shot out of her like tentacles towards Mara. They came at her from all sides, but Mara whipped in a circle and grabbed all 4 in her demon arm. She thrust her body to the side and hurled Eloise through the air into the crowd of spectator platforms. Mara glanced down as Astra, in her dragon form, was helping Alexis with her battle. With her mineral magnetism abilities, Alexis had pulled the few rocks in her arena up onto her arms and was firing them at a purple and yellow clad figure with bulky legs. Anytime a rock got close to him, he thrust his hands forth, barely tapping it, and the rocks exploded into pieces, crumbling around him. "Once a traitor, always a traitor, huh, Astra?" Alexis snarled. Astra fired a cannon of sound from her maw, but it just went right past the figure without a single effect. His helmet seemed to be protecting him from the noise. Astra transformed most of her body back into herself, keeping only her tail and draconic claws for arms. "This is all part of the plan, Alexis. I wouldn't betray you. I mean, not again." "Yeah, we'll see," Alexis said, trying to back away from the figure as it approached, but he was too fast. He lunged at her and grabbed her stony arms. Whatever his powers were, with a single touch, he made all the rocks crumble to dust. He reached his arm right for Alexis's face, but Astra swung her tail and smashed him aside. Mara wanted to help, but she had her own problems. Eloise was flying back at her. Harold's amorphous arms had stretched out 30 feet to grab hold of a platform above her, and he was swinging back towards Mara. The voice inside her head started screaming again.
Kill!
"No," she thought to herself angrily. "I only kill monsters and demons." She heard Kayla scream out in pain from below. Regardless of what she did to Eloise or Harold, she had to get down there and help. But Astra had said to keep Eloise from the panel. "Okay, Astra," Mara muttered to herself. "How about I make sure nobody can use the panel?" Mara thrust back her demon arm just as Eloise and Harold got close, then hammered her fist into the panel with all her might. Shockingly, even with all Mara's power, she didn't completely destroy the controls, but she did put a massive crack into it. "No, you miserable little wretch!" But just as Eloise got to Mara, the control platform started to fall from the sky. Mara held on as it plummeted down towards the arena below. She leapt off it and landed a few feet away from where the panel smashed a crater into the ground. Mara looked back at it to see all the lights and panels on it flicker, then fade. Mara hoped that meant nobody could use it now. Just then, Sterling crashed down to the ground next to her, half his body covered in frost. She hadn't even realized she'd landed in his arena. Hey Mara, I can see you're dealing with some pretty weird stuff too, but can I get a hand here?" The Hydra stomped towards them both, but now it had 7 heads. 5 of them opened up and spat cannons of frigid water. Mara's eyes glowed as she ran towards it and held out her demon arm. Every blast fired into her and shot freezing shockwaves through her body, but she kept pushing forward.
Kill, kill, kill!
"Fine," she muttered. "This thing I will kill." Mara sprang forward, bursting through the water and smashing her demon arm right into the Hydra's chest. She plowed right through it, getting covered in ice and freezing water. The beast erupted, and parts of it landed all around the arena. Water splashed everywhere. Mara was freezing, but she was okay. Unfortunately, the creature's icy pieces slowly started sliding back together. That is, until Sterling ran up and started shooting a beam of fire at it, melting the remaining ice. "You're amazing, Mara. That was so cool." She blushed, but it wasn't noticeable as her whole body was red from the cold. I can't use my full powers right now, I'm too cold, but I can do enough to keep this thing down and out, but the others probably need your help. She nodded and ran towards the button at the center of his arena. She pressed it, then leapt up the wall and down into the next one. She pressed that button too, and was about to move on to the next one when she heard Kayla scream again. Mara whipped around. She was in Kayla's arena now. Kayla was fighting what looked like herself, but a twisted, deformed version with some kind of mutated, rusting biomech. Kayla's biomech friend, Charlie, had her legs converted into rollerblades that she was trying to use to get away from her foe, but something was wrong. Charlie's lens was flickering on and off, and he had gashes sliced into him that he wasn't healing. Kayla had cuts with dripping blood from her shoulders and waist as Evil Hirsch slashed a buzzsaw at her. "Charlie, come on, Charlie, stay with me," she winced. "I need someone else to appreciate that evil me has a weird beard thing like evil Spock." I'm still here, Kayla, I think I need a minute, sorry." Her foe's other arm converted into a rusty scythe that she swung with full force at Kayla. Mara fired across the arena and caught it with her demon arm. She looked the being up and down.
Kill!
Mara almost instinctively ripped the being in half, but held back. She couldn't tell if this thing was a monster or something more. The deformed biomech thrust a buzzsaw at Mara, and she ducked under the slash before hurling the foe across the arena, away from Kayla. Mara turned to Kayla, who made her jump as Kayla gave her a big hug. "You're our hero, Mara." Kayla pulled back. "I don't know what that thing is, but it seemed like it was trying to absorb Charlie, like it wanted to eat him or something." A warm glow seemed to fill Mara's soul at Kayla's appreciation, but then Kayla continued. "I'm sure we'll be fine, but is everyone else okay?" Mara turned back to the button. "I don't know. It sounds like a lot of them are still fighting. We all need to get into the same place, fast." She could get to all the buttons fairly quickly, but maybe there was an even quicker way. Mara ran, then sprinted, then exploded forwards towards the intersection of all the walls separating the arenas. She reeled back her fist, and with the most force she'd ever used, blasted into the walls. Dust and rubble burst all around her, so she couldn't see what she'd actually accomplished. But when the haze cleared, she looked around her to see the center of all the walls crumbling in. All 6 arenas were now connected. Mara smirked. The Sharp Gang's back in business. Benny limped and ran towards the center of the arena. Half his armor was gone or crushed, and he seemed like he was barely holding himself up as the beast behind him gained ground. Mara fired past him and hammered her fist into the creature. It shot backwards, rolling across the ground as a dust wave burst around Mara, but then it quickly got back up. "Gotta hit it under the belly, kid. Ugh. I got a couple shots in there, but Before he finished, she sprinted at it again. She lifted it up, tossed it into the air, then slashed a clawed arm under its stomach, slicing the creature clean open. She then turned and bolted past Benny. "Sorry, Benny, I'll check on you later, but everyone else needs help too." He gave her a wide grin, and she just barely heard him say, "Alright, go get him, kid," as she fired off into the next slice of the arena. Everyone else was luring their foes into the center, so Mara got to them all very easily. Astra was flying over Alexis's arena, but Alexis had stubbornly refused to catch a ride. Her foe hadn't landed a hit on her, but she hadn't done much damage to him either. Mara burst between them and grabbed the guy by the waist. He touched her demon arm and it started to crumble away, but every bit that fell away was quickly replaced with more demonic mass. She hurled him to the far end of the arena, ignoring more calls from inside to kill. Mara whipped back around. "Are you okay, Alexis?" "Yeah, no thanks to Astra." Alexis then gave a rare smile to Mara. "Your powers are pretty amazing, you know that?" Mara wanted to bounce with joy, even though she could have sworn she heard Astra growling from above her. She didn't have time to confirm though as she sprinted off through the next arenas. Tayron's foe had gotten its biomech onto him, so he was completely unconscious. Akoj was just about to slaughter him when Mara ran in, tore the mech off Tayron, and punched Akoj across the arena. Tayron woke up just as she sprinted him into the center and left him with Benny and the others gathering there. She burst into the last arena. She'd left Heath for last, knowing that with his power levels, he had a better chance of holding his own than anyone. But when she got into his arena, she saw blood splattered all around. Heath was in the middle of the arena on his back, wheezing for air, trying to crawl away from what looked like a regular girl, albeit one in a torn and tattered hoodie, who was waltzing towards him menacingly. Mara had no idea what this person had done to him, but if she could hurt Heath that badly, she knew she couldn't hold back. Mara exploded forward and thrust her demonic fist out. It struck and shot an eruption of dust all around them. But the blow didn't actually hit the girl. It hit a force field around her. Heath muttered, "No, Mara, get back!" The girl spun around with her eyes wide. "Oh, you hit even harder than him, huh? That's perfect." The force field suddenly shrunk into the girl before Mara and sent an orange shockwave of energy through her body. She grew to 3 times her size, sprung ears and massive claws, and her mouth started to foam.
That was just what I needed.
She hit Mara back with such force that she fired backwards and smashed through what was left of one of the arena walls. Mara's head spun as she rolled across the ground. She'd never been hit that hard, but she got back up.
Kill, kill, kill!
Definitely tempting, Mara's teeth grinded as her foe ran at her again. Mara sprang forward and thrust her fist, but her foe just took the hit, and the energy of the blow seemed to charge her up even more. She hammered her fist down on Mara's head and slammed her into the earth, shattering the ground beneath her. "Mara!" Heath yelled as Alexis helped him towards where Mara was fighting. "She absorbs kinetic energy. The only way to get her weak again is to let her use it all up. You can't hit her anymore."
Yeah.
The fox-like hulking figure said, grabbing Mara by the neck and lifting her up.
So you lived through enough of my punches, maybe you have a shot at beating me.
The foe tossed Mara up, then hammered a foot into her, sending her crashing across the ground again. These hits hurt more than anything Mara had ever felt. Her head throbbed, her body ached, she was growing angrier and angrier.
Kill!
The girl fired towards her again, blasting a barrage of punches into Mara, each one rattling her bones. Alexis and Tayron tried to jump in, but the girl darted aside, grabbing Alexis and hurling her into Tayron, sending them both back across the arena. Mara, trying to ignore her pain and anger, ran between the rest of the group and the fox girl. "Everyone stay back! I can handle this, I know it."
Can you? Let's see.
The girl ran at her again and fired punch after punch. Mara was getting hit so quickly and so rapidly, she felt like she was in a meat grinder. Her eyes started to fade to black. All she felt was pain and all she heard was kill. It got more and more tempting. She thought about what she'd do when her foe weakened. And soon, that very thing happened. The punches got weaker and weaker until it was barely an annoying tapping. Mara's eyes opened and her entire body was throbbing in pain. But the girl before her had slowly turned back into her previous form. How did you take all that? Nobody can... Mara instinctively grabbed the girl around the neck with her demon arm and lifted her into the air. Her clawed thumb was right next to the girl's neck.
Kill, kill, kill!
Voices said something behind Mara, but she didn't hear them. Rage emanated from the throbbing pain across Mara's aching body. She wanted to do it. This thing had hurt her friends and had clearly enjoyed trying to kill her. Once more, the voice in her rumbled, "Kill!" But before rage could overtake her, she looked into the eyes of this girl. She didn't see shame or regret, and maybe this girl had no guilt whatsoever over trying to kill people. But Mara knew that she would. With the voice inside her telling her once more to kill, she overruled it and thought, "No, you're just a thought. You're not me." She dropped the girl and simply shoved her to the ground on her back before turning to the group. The overseers above were going wild, some cheering and some booing. Mara tried to look strong as she limped her way back towards her friends, who were all battered and bloody, but cheering her praises once again. Before she could reach them all, though, Mara and all the others suddenly fell through the floor. Portals had opened beneath them and they all landed back down in front of the Agency of Supernatural Protection. Eloise's head briefly popped through the portal above them. "Well, you certainly know how to put on a show, little demon girl. In the very least, I thank you for that." She looked to Astra. "Next time, I'll be sure to have a little treat for you as well, Astra. I won't forget a betrayal like this." Mara tried to leap up towards her, but the portal closed. The fight, for now, was over. Everyone turned to Astra, most confused and some livid. All right, I know you all want an explanation."
You think?
Heath yelled, propped up by Kayla. We all knew we had to take on Ludum at some point, but she has a lock on her dimension, so you can only get in by invitation from her or Harold. I pretended to betray you all so I could get us in and give me time to make a sort of energy counter to her locks. Once we were in there, I was able to create a sort of energy curse that would mean she couldn't lock me out of there ever again. Now, once we feel like we're actually ready to face her, I can teleport us back into her dimension whenever we want, find her in seconds, and then take her down. Everyone was silent, but Mara muttered, "What do you mean you cursed her?" "Oh, calm down, it's not the same thing as your curse. Don't make this about you. I just got us easy access to one of the worst beings in the multiverse. You're all welcome." Alexis marched through the group and hammered her fist into Astra's jaw. Sterling and Tayron jumped forward and stepped between them. "Whoa, okay, Alexis, that's... You could have gotten us all killed. If Mara hadn't been there, we probably would have died." Astra was in shock from the blow. I would have saved you. You were barely able to help me," Alexis stormed. "Let alone could have saved everyone else. Next time you have some brilliant plan, do us all a favor and ignore it." Alexis turned back to Mara and her face softened. "Mara, all of us owe you our lives. As long as you want to be a part of this team, you're more than welcome." Everyone, except Astra, nodded and thanked her. They all slowly dispersed to tend to their wounds. Mara was swirling with emotions. She felt bad for Astra, but was also pretty mad at her. But, again, was happy that all her new friends respected her. Most of all, though, she was ecstatic that she'd been so able to ignore the killer voice inside her and remain true to herself, even in a dire circumstance. That was the biggest victory she could hope for. Once more, once everyone was gone, the voice still spoke again.
Kill.
But she just stood upright and smiled to herself, saying, "No." And there we go, a new community redraw background for the next month, and a new Multiverse Tale all wrapped up. The longest one in the history of the channel. Unless you count Battle for the Beast World, but that was one story split into 2 episodes. Admittedly, I had planned a slightly different ending for this story that would hint at what's coming next in Mara's story arc, but I kinda like this more positive ending, so I left it there for now. But there is a significant Chapter 3 coming up for Mara. Although there will be an interim Multiverse Tales episode before we get to that, which will be the next community redraw. But before I get to that, I want to thank everybody who submitted to this one, because it was so cool how much detail and depth some people put into not just their designs, but their lore that was made for the characters, and how they wanted to see them tied into Multiverse Tales, and different people writing like interviews with their character and other characters from Multiverse Tales. It's so cool how many people are becoming invested in this series. It's really awesome for me to see. But of course, specific thank you to the people that were selected for this episode. The Pixel Kitty, Mr. Goat, Drew Teasley, @Calzone on Instagram, Carter Anderson, and Musewolf Lloyd. This was a really fun redraw for me, and I'm so glad it was the episode that kicked off this year, because I think it's got us off to a good start. But now for the next community redraw episode, it's going to be another one where I've written character descriptions for people to choose from. There's 5 different characters, 4 human kinds of characters, and 1 dinosaur, who are going to be some of the main players in the next Multiverse Tales episode, the working title of which is Sharp v Champagne, Dawn of Justice. That's right, the crossover episode of Benny Sharp and Champagne McGregor that so many people have been asking for in the comments is finally coming. And while I do hope there's a decently even distribution of people submitting for all 5 of the different characters that I've described in the document linked in the pinned comment and in the description of this video, I think there's a decent chance a significant amount of the submissions are for Champagne McGregor. That's right, I'm letting someone out there in the community design what Champagne is gonna look like. Because I've got some ideas of my own, but I kind of think it'll be more fun to see what all of you submit, what you think he should look like. Super excited to see what you all submit for that episode, but besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or uplifting note. And the thought I want to leave people with today is the idea that you are not your thoughts. You're the one who observes and reacts to your thoughts. So even if you have a recurring thought that's frequently saying something negative to you, that doesn't make it true, and that doesn't mean that's who you are. You can consciously choose new thoughts and consciously choose how to feel about yourself. It's not always easy, but you can do it. Hope that's helpful to someone out there. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Friday. Goodbye.